Today we're looking at Harriet Tubman. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, take a look at dailybellringer.com for additional resources to go with these videos. So, Harriet Tubman is arguably one of the bravest women of the 19th century. Born into slavery, she managed to escape, but not only that, she then went back into the South to help lead others to freedom. Tubman was born in March of 1822, and her birth name was Araminta Ross, and she went by the name Minty. As with many enslaved people, there was no exact record or date to say this was the exact birth date, but historians have been able to piece together evidence to point to that month and year. Both of her parents, Harriet Green and Ben Ross, were enslaved on a plantation in Dorchester County, Maryland. She experienced from a young age the evil of slavery, as she had siblings that were sold to other plantations, and she never saw those siblings again. As a teenager, she suffered a severe head injury when an overseer attempted to throw a large weight at another enslaved person, and it hit Harriet in the head. For the rest of her life, she had pain and dizziness from the injury and also had problems with sleeping. After the injury, she reported that she began to have visions and dreams that she saw as messages from God. She became intensely religious and focused on the Old Testament of the Bible, especially stories of people overcoming slavery. In 1844, she married John Tubman, who was a free African American living in Maryland. She changed her first name to Harriet and took on John's last name of Tubman. The marriage of free and enslaved people was actually pretty common in the area of Maryland where Harriet lived, as nearly half of the African American population in that area was free. But the fact that her husband was free and she was not increased her desire to break free from slavery. In 1849, she made her escape, traveling along a route established by the Underground Railroad, which the Underground Railroad was a network of escape routes for enslaved people to use to find freedom. In order to avoid detection and being possibly captured by slave catchers, she had to travel by night and hide during the day. She followed the North Star, traveling over 80 miles by foot to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Once there, she worked odd jobs, but dwelled on the idea of other family members still being enslaved. So she decided to go back into the South and help her family escape. The problem was, by this point, the Compromise of 1850 had been passed by Congress, which included the notorious Fugitive Slave Act, which made escaping from slavery far more difficult and dangerous, as now slave catchers could come into the North and take escaped enslaved people back into the South. For more about the Compromise and the Fugitive Slave Act, check out my other video just devoted to the Compromise of 1850. But despite this new danger, Tubman returned anyway. On her first trip, she found her brother and two other men and guided them to freedom. Then she returned to find her husband John, but then learned that he had married another woman after Harriet had escaped. Although she was heartbroken, she decided to find other enslaved people, and she led them into the North. In December of 1851, she returned again and guided a group of 11 enslaved people north, and there is evidence that that group hid in the home of Frederick Douglass before making their way further north to Canada. Douglass admired Tubman for her bravery and selflessness. For Tubman, this pattern continued as she made a total of 13 missions into the South, rescuing at least 70, and some estimates are 300 enslaved people from slavery. She earned the nickname Moses, as she was a conductor on the Underground Railroad, leading so many to freedom. In her determination to overcome the evil of slavery, she worked with abolitionist John Brown. Tubman aided Brown by recruiting enslaved people to his cause, and Brown called her General Tubman. However, when John Brown carried out his attack on Harper's Ferry, Tubman was not present and did not participate. In 1860, she led her last mission to lead others to freedom. As the Civil War began in 1861, she was a strong supporter of the Union and actually served nursing soldiers and helping recently liberated enslaved people and leading scouting parties in South Carolina and Florida. And actually in June of 1863, Tubman was the first woman to lead an armed attack against Confederates in the Civil War. After the war was over, she moved back to her home in Auburn, New York, which she had purchased before the war. She continued aiding whoever she could. She worked at different odd jobs and opened her home as a boarding house. In 1869, she married Nelson Charles Davis, who was a veteran of the Civil War, and together they adopted a little girl named Gertie in 1874. They lived together in Auburn until Davis's death in 1888. Tubman became an advocate for women's rights and worked alongside Susan B. Anthony to argue for women to have the right to vote. But as she got older, her pain and trouble sleeping from her head injury from years before began to really severely plague her. In 1911, she was placed in a nursing home, and 2 years later, in 1913, she died of pneumonia. Tubman's legacy as one of the most heroic women of the 19th century lives on to this day as an example of someone who had to overcome the worst of conditions, but yet cared about others enough to endanger herself for their benefit. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.